Hi, everyone. I'm Terry.
And I'm Ella. Welcome to the Chasing Red Flags podcast. Let's get real. Here, no topic is off limits.
And real beats perfect every time.
Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome to where you belong.
You're part of the family now, so let's get real together. Hi, Mama.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm good. I actually am stuffed and ready for this podcast. I just made, as you know, I've been cooking a lot in the apartment, and I just made the best bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel. And this might sound a little weird, but I put cream cheese on the bagel before I put everything else on it.
Wait. And you have a bagel, and then what?
I have a bagel, cream cheese, on both sides, and then bacon, egg, and cheese.
I don't think that's weird.
It was so
I love.
good.
I do. This is gross, right? Raisin bagel, chive cheese. Raisin, chive cheese, bacon, egg, and cheese.
No, yeah, I'm not, that's disgusting.
It's like all the different textures. There's like raisins and
whatever you're into, Mom. I will not be trying that though.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're full and stuffed.
Yes, and I'm excited for today's guest because she is somebody that I truly, truly admire and relate to a lot, and I know that our entire community is going to feel the same. And she has excelled in college sports, so it's awesome.
Her accomplishments speak for themselves, so we'll get into all of that with her.
Yes, and I know that now she is stepping into her post-grad life and bringing that same drive and passion into her next chapter, and she's already faced some very intense, high-pressure situations, so I can't wait to hear how she's navigated those challenges and gotten through them and the lessons she's taken away from them and kind of what's fueling her next steps in life.
Can't wait.
But before we introduce today's guests, we just want to say thank you all so much for being here. We truly appreciate your support. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you're a day one listener, please subscribe to the Chasing Red Flags podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch all of the episodes.
All right.
You ready? Let's introduce Annabelle.
Today, we're joined by a former Boston College lacrosse player who completed her career with 76 wins, 2 ACC titles, and 2 national championships. Oh, my God.
Amazing. And since graduating in May of 2024, she's launched her career as an on-air personality, hosting and co-hosting sports podcasts, which is amazing.
And not to mention, she's been to the White House. Please welcome Annabelle Hasselbeck to the podcast.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. I didn't actually know the thing about the 76 wins, so I appreciate that intro.
Oh, yes. See, I'm glad that we're telling you how many wins you have. We counted.
So funny.
That's awesome.
All right, well, we just want to start with a fun little question. But what are you really into these days, especially after being post-grad? Like whether it's a book you can't put down or a TV show that you're binging or a favorite meal. I've been cooking so much at college, so that's been awesome. Or a workout. I don't know. What are you loving at the moment?
Yeah, I love that question. And I wish I was like you and I was cooking a lot. That would be my goal if I could. But actually right now I'm into these protein bars called Mosh, MOSH. I don't know where they came from. My mom got them, sent them to the house, and I absolutely love them.
What's your favorite flavor?
They have a banana bread that's really
good.
I know.
Banana bread.
You would never think of a banana bread protein bar. So yes, I'm doing the protein bar thing right now, but I'm hoping to move into the cooking like you eventually.
Yes.
Well, it's always fun to hear what's inspiring you right now. Speaking of things that shaped your life, let's get into it. You come from an extremely athletic family, to say the least. Your dad is former NFL quarterback, Matt Hasselbeck. Your mom played field hockey at BC, and you and all of your siblings were or are Division I athletes.
So impressive.
Tell us about growing up in such an athletic family where sports were such a big part of your life. Did you feel pressure to excel in sports?
Yeah, I actually have gotten that question a lot growing up, just because I think really with anything, if you have 2 parents that are doctors, if you have 2 parents that are athletes, people are like, oh, did you feel like you were forced to do that, right?
Absolutely.
And I never once felt that way, not even close. I will say though, my parents put a huge emphasis on you have to be doing something. They're like, I don't care what you do, but you need to be doing something. So I did. Every sport under the sun, I've probably done it. I did art class, outside of school. I did the school play. My sister and I did guitar lessons. during the
Wow.
week throughout growing up. So I wouldn't say that it was ever forced on us. We definitely gravitated towards sports just because that was the environment that we were
Of
in. And
course.
we loved it. We loved watching my dad play. My mom is super humble. She will not talk about her college athletic career or
And she was
post-college career.
incredible.
She was incredible. This is a kind of a funny story. My
Yeah.
mom and dad both went to Boston College. And one day, years later, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. It's all, 3 siblings. And my dad gets this letter in the mail and he's like, oh my gosh, like it's from Boston College. This is my Hall of Fame, letter that I'm getting. And he opens it up and it says, Dear Sarah. And he was like,
Oh my
what?
Love it.
So my mom got into BC's Hall of Fame before my dad, but I didn't even really realize that or know that quite literally until I was in high school and we moved back to Boston. And it was kind of like in our face, like, oh, we're near BC. It's brought up. Someone's family friend mentioned it. I'm like, oh, wait, Mom, you never talked about playing field hockey at BC. So my dad did play in the NFL, but my mom is definitely the big athlete in the family.
I love that. That's
I love
awesome. And
it.
I love that
Yeah.
you got that letter and that's when you really knew. That's incredible.
Wait, that's amazing. That's such a good story. And I know, as with many professional athletes, your dad played for a few different teams during his time in the NFL. So were you moving around a lot as a kid, and was that hard for you?
Yeah, I moved around a ton.
Okay.
I definitely have met people who've moved around a lot more than I have. But I grew up in Seattle, Washington. We were with the Seahawks for 10 years, and I was born there. It was like '01 to '10. Then we moved to
Okay.
Nashville, Tennessee. And that was crazy because I will never forget. We were in our driveway. I think I was in the Barbie Jeep with my sister. My brother was in a Peter Pan tent. And I remember my dad coming out and be like, hey, we're going to go to the Tennessee Titans. And in my head, I had kind of knew that we were probably not going to be with the Seahawks. And that was a really hard, couple of weeks for our family. And I remember thinking, Tennessee Titans, I don't know that team at all. All I know is Tennessee. I'm like, where do I know that word? Tennessee. I'm like, the Hannah Montana movie. I was like, oh,
Oh
my
my
gosh. So that's all I knew about Tennessee. And I'll never forget looking out of the plane and seeing just green squares everywhere because we lived in Seattle. It was more of a city and then just
Very
seeing
different.
crazy. So Seattle to Nashville, Tennessee for 2 years. That's why sometimes I'll throw out a hey y'all. It'll come out eventually if I start
I
talking
love it.
or if I'm around Southern people. Then moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, which was a
The
huge
Colts.
change. The Colts, which was a huge change because, we're in Nashville. We're probably going to end up in Nashville. Nope. We get
Right.
sent to
Nope.
Indiana.
We're moving.
And I would say that was an easier transition for me because middle school is 6th, 7th, 8th grade, right? And so
So that's
I
right.
started 6th grade work. My sister, 1 year younger, kind of got that weird cutoff. She was 5th grade. So
Right.
I was
Yeah.
really lucky that I got to do all of middle school in Indiana. And then for our last move, we moved to Boston, Massachusetts when my dad retired, started working for ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And then I got to do all of high school in Boston at one spot. So that was definitely something that my parents were considering just with my dad's career and that I was very
Yeah.
thankful for. But it was really hard. I would say that
That's so hard.
yeah, when we moved to Nashville, I was so stubborn. I wouldn't call our house home. I would say oh, well,
Right.
we're going back to the rental. I was so
Oh.
kind of petty
Well,
in
my
a sense.
husband went to Vanderbilt, so he loves Nashville. You can't say anything
Yes.
bad about Tennessee to
Oh,
him.
lucky him. Yes. Well, I love my cousin's there now as a student athlete. And I wanted to go to Vanderbilt initially. I love that school. And Nashville is just a cool place. But what I learned from it, I
Those are
would
your
say,
formative years.
yes, I was
Yeah.
so wound up in being sad from Seattle that I missed what was in front of me in Nashville. Taylor Swift was living there at the time.
Oh my
Every country
gosh.
singer is there.
Right.
And then you move to Indiana, it's nothing's going on.
Nothing. Yeah. Very different.
Yes.
Well,
So-
you also did come to Boston and go to a very competitive sports program at your high school. For our Boston locals, she went to Rivers. And you were a superstar on the lacrosse team there. Then you got an offer to play D1 at Boston College, which is for so many high school athletes a dream. And I'm sure, including yourself, what can you talk about what that felt like, having that dream become a reality?
Yeah, it's so cool to be able to have the opportunity to reflect on that because it was my dream. Truly, I actually didn't start playing lacrosse until a lot later, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then that's when
Whoa.
we really moved to it.
That's so interesting.
They didn't have it in Nashville. It wasn't a big
yeah, I
time
didn't even think
sport,
about
or
that.
Indiana. It was still getting
Oh.
off the ground. And there was a coach who said, Katie Crest-Irby, an amazing lacrosse player, former lacrosse player at Duke. And she said to my sister and I, she's like, you guys are really good, but if you want to play college lacrosse, you need to get on a team on the East Coast, like a travel team. You need to play travel lacrosse.
Right.
And it just happens that we played a little bit of travel lacrosse my 8th grade year. The following year, we end up moving to Boston, the city where I'm on this travel lacrosse team that I had been commuting to. So it was just cool how that worked out. But I would say once we moved to Boston is when I really fell in love with lacrosse, and I really fell in love with BC lacrosse in general.
Right.
That's when the team started to start winning. These names, Kenzie Kent, Samba Puzo, Dempsey Arsenal, like those girls, I just was in awe of. So to just be recruited there, like I was freaking out, more so
Incredible.
just because of the girls that I got to watch.
Right.
Yeah, so it was truly insane. And I really didn't think that early on in my recruiting process. I didn't know if I was going to go to BC. For some reason, my freshman year of high school is when the team started recruiting me, just because the rule change was different, which was my sister's 8th grade year.
Now it's junior year. Is that correct?
Now it's junior year.
Okay.
And every time Acacia Walker called me, I missed her call. Like for some reason, I kept missing her calls.
No.
And so in my head, I don't even know if I'm supposed to play college lacrosse at this point. Haven't even played a season of high school yet. It's the fall.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, maybe it's just not meant to be. Like, maybe I'm just not supposed to go there. And Mallory, my sister, was picking up her call. They always connected. So I was like, shoot, like, this is really strange. Why am I keep missing her calls? Well, I go to the BC lacrosse clinic that winter. I believe it was in January. And I had never talked to Acacia before, on the phone, in person, whatever it was. And she greeted me when I got on campus like we were best friends, like we had talked forever. And it was just like this really cool, oh my gosh, this program wants me. And I think that was a huge moment for me when I was like, wow, like this is different than anything that I've ever experienced.
And that's amazing.
That's incredible.
And I can't imagine that feeling. And then I know you obviously went on to join an incredible team of athletes and coaches and all of these amazing women at BC. But I will say from personal experience, I know that freshman year isn't necessarily as sparkly and awesome as people make it out to be. Can you just kind of explain a little about your freshman year and what it felt like to transition from being like the top of your game and like the leader on the field to one of the newest people on this team?
Yeah.
That's definitely a big adjustment.
100%.
Freshman year was crazy because it was 2020 and that was COVID. So half of my friends from high school weren't even in college.
I didn't even think about
my best friend, actually, she was playing lacrosse at another school. She ended up taking the season off and moving to Charleston. And, they're all having fun in Charleston, not going to class and all things. And I remember being on driving in a van to practice for BC. And I would be clicking through people's social media. You know how you just kind of tap through. Yeah. And the girls that were sitting behind me one day were like, AB, turn that off. I can't see it. Because we were masked up. I didn't even know some of my teammates very well as a freshman because I couldn't see what they looked like and I couldn't hang out with them. So it was
crazy
hard.
That was your freshman year. That's hard.
It was so hard. But I would say too, I was so thankful that I just got to be there and be on campus. So as much as it was different and not normal, and we had no football, and it was sad, honestly, and I was in constant fear of testing positive for COVID and hurting my team in whatever sense that would be. I was just in awe to be in college. I'm the oldest kid in my family. And so I was just so giddy the whole time.
So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, what advice would you give, athletes that are seniors in high school or juniors in high school or going through the recruiting process, adjusting to this change, but your experience because of COVID was so different. But you can still have a feeling of that adjustment from being in a high school sport to being now a D1 athlete and what that commitment is.
Definitely. It's a huge transition. Regardless of how good the team is that you play for, how many hours of practice that you put in before you get to college, who it is so hard. And I think something that really helped me was leaning into the relationships, not just on my team, but also on other teams and with people who didn't play a sport, because it just brings you outside of yourself, right? You realize oh, there are other people also doing the same daily routine as me, maybe just in a different sport, and or there are people who are like have other things that they're going through that you can also be like, okay, like this is similar or different, but neither is more important than the other. And so I
Yeah.
think
I
that really helped
love
me.
that.
I
That's a
love
good,
that.
that's something everyone should hear. That's beautiful.
100%. That's
And
awesome.
important,
And
not to get
very
stuck
important.
in your one little clique of friends and your one little team. And that's kind of a life lesson for everyone.
Absolutely. I also think for those listening, people who are like looking at colleges or whose kids are looking at colleges, what were the advantages and like disadvantages of going to college so close to home? Because for me personally, I wanted to be close to home, but I didn't want to be in Massachusetts.
You don't want me to have to like drive over for dinner.
But I don't know.
But
There's
now she
obviously
misses it.
advantages and disadvantages, and yes.
Yes, I don't think either one is better than the other, but I will say like you have to know yourself and you have to know like what fills me up, like what do I want to get out of my college experience? And I can just speak for myself personally. In my circumstance, the team that my number one priority was to go to a school where I could have the best education, social life, and lacrosse experience, right? And so I said to
Yeah.
myself, if I broke both my legs and I could never play lacrosse again, and I was stuck at the college that I went to, where do I want to be? And
That's
who do
such a
I
good
want to be with?
mindset.
What girls do I want to be around? Because I'm hoping that a lot of you become my bridesmaids, right?
Yeah.
And
See, that's what we
so,
always talk about, Ella and I.
I
You
find
go to
my want to
college
find
to
my
meet your
bridesmaids.
bridesmaids, no
yes.
matter what
Yep.
happens to you.
Yes. And so for me, that was a big thing in my head was outside of lacrosse, but also prioritizing lacrosse. So I decided to go to Boston College because I thought that's where I could win national championships. And those were the coaches and the girls that I believed in, that believed in me, that made me feel like my best self when I was around them before I even got to college. And then I would say, in my own circumstance outside of lacrosse, I'm the older sister. My younger sister,
Yeah.
Mallory, was still in high school down the street. My little brother, Henry, would someday be playing Friday night football games. My grandparents, who I had moved around, like we talked about earlier, I was never close
Yeah.
to family growing up because we were
Right.
constantly moving. So to be on the East Coast in Boston, close to family, specifically my grandparents and my younger siblings, I wanted the opportunity to go to a Zavarian football Friday night football game and then get back to BC and go hang out with my friends on a Friday night. So that was a huge part of my decision to choose to stay close to home. But I think, if you go far away, I think it creates a lot of independence that I probably don't have enough of. So both are awesome.
I think you're doing just fine.
I do too. Seriously.
So I heard, and I don't know what this means, so I'm asking you completely blank, that there was a mantra your coaches used to say, which was be where your boots are. What does that mean?
Yes. So this actually, my freshman year, we were given a talk right before the national championship game, and for me at least, in my experience, that's when the phrase really took root in our program. And it's just like stay in the moment, stay present. You can't get too far ahead of yourself, and that was so crucial for our team because. Coming in my freshman year, our program had lost 3 national championships in a row. And so there's so much weight, even though we never had won the championship, there's still weight to like not drop that streak. Don't dishonor the
Yeah.
girls who came before you because like I said earlier, I idolized and I just thought the world of the girls on the team that came before me. Even the girls who were just the year above me. Like not even
Yeah.
saying the girls who
Right.
were seniors, 5th years. So that was a huge weight on our team, a weight on our shoulders. So for that to be the first year that we won the national championship, we had to be where
Amazing.
our cleats were, our boots were,
Right.
to
Yeah.
stay
Oh, I
present in the
love
moment,
that.
not worry about the outcome, not worry about what happened in the past, right? Because that was the storyline. Our storyline was the past. There was no like the underdog, the future. It was how do we let go of that? How do we stay in the moment, focus on the X's and O's of the game, and ended up winning it?
I
Incredible
love
freshman.
that.
What a freshman year, right?
I'm going to start using that now.
I like that. So
Yeah.
was there a moment where that mindset, whether it was with athletics or something else, that kind of made a difference in any tough situation that you can think of?
So many times. And that's why it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like just being present was something I constantly had to remind myself. I wouldn't
Right.
say I'm amazing at it, but even my dad, like outside of our team, my dad would give me that advice. He'd say, hey, like, you need to go to the next thing. Like, regardless of how well you did on a test, how well you did at practice, how well you played in a game, how much fun you had, at a certain time, that's over at some point, right? Or if you did
Yep.
horribly on a test, if you played terrible in practice, or if you didn't win the game, he would say, find like a physical landmark. And so there was two fences outside of Conti Forum on the way back to one of my dorms. And I would just say, hey, regardless of how well I played at practice, like I can't have too much pride. Or regardless of how poorly I played at practice, I can't get too beat down on myself. So I'd say by the time I hit that fence, and this was my dad's advice,
Oh, I
by the time I
love
hit that,
that,
I'm done.
actually.
I'm next thing. I'm going to walk into my
Yep.
room,
On to the
be
next.
happy to talk to my roommates, all the things. So that was really helpful in keeping me present.
I think Ella and I talk about mindset all the time, right? So are you
Yes.
listening, Ella? I think
I'm taking all of this
she's
advice because
taking
I
all
think I
in. I
need to
think
do
this
it
is
a little more.
such important advice for everyone to hear, actually.
Yes,
It is all about your
absolutely.
mindset, whether it's a good moment or a bad moment. When you get to that fence, you move forward.
Yeah. Well, here at Chasing Red Flags and what we're doing, we're all about destigmatizing mental health by sharing our experiences and the real experiences we're going through just to help other people feel less alone, because that's how I felt for a while. And so I think obviously being an athlete means balancing the intense physical demands with what you tell yourself mentally too. So could you share a little bit about your experience during that challenging sophomore year, I think it was, and like what you like told yourself mentally to kind of get you through?
Yeah, definitely. College was so awesome. Like, I had so many highs, and I absolutely adored Boston College. I literally was like hyperventilating crossing the stage when I was graduating because I was like, this isn't
Yeah.
happening. But there were some really low lows. Like, it was hard. And specifically, my sophomore year was probably one of the hardest years for me. And in that season, like I had certain circumstances that just were not going my way. It just was like, what? Like, this is just not going my way. And so I kind of had to choose, like, am I just going to let this overtake me and overwhelm me? And a phrase that I said to myself was, I am not going to let I'm not going to let this time be wasted. Like, I am at too awesome of a school. I have too good of a team. I love my teammates. I'm at school with my sister. I'm at Boston College. Like, I love this
Yeah.
place. It's too good. My circumstance outside of what I'm not happy about is too good for me to waste what's in front of me. And so two things that I really would like single out that helped me through that season was plugging in and having intentional relationships, like not just relationships, like intentional relationships, and serving other people, because it got me outside of myself. And something with on the relationship side is there were this group of girls that me and my roommate were friends with, but we weren't really like super tight. We weren't besties, but we knew that whenever we were around them, we just felt good. And so
Yeah.
we made a motive to seek intentional time with them. So we'd like plan dinner dates. We'd be like,
I
hey,
love
or even
that.
if it
Love
was like,
it.
hey, I'm going to be walking to class at this time. Can I
Yeah.
walk
Do
with
you
you?
want to go?
And
Yep.
that's hard, like, regardless of whether you play a sport or not, it's hard to like line up
College is
people's
busy.
schedules. So we did
Yes.
that. Fast forward 2 years, not the next year, but like 2 years later, because of those intentional, like once a week dinners. It wasn't like every day we're hanging out. It was like a once a week planned, hey, I'm going to meet you at sushi, like whatever else. Fast forward 2 years, those were my senior year roommates. Like that group of girls was my senior year roommates.
That's
And
incredible.
I didn't really
Amazing.
know them freshman year. So that was just cool to see, like when you're intentional and you make someone like an effort with someone, like you don't know where that relationship's going to go.
No.
You never know who you're going to meet. I'm 50 and I feel like in my life I meet new people every day. So I love that everything's about intentionally making efforts with other people.
Yes, that's
And
so
I do feel
good.
like what you put in is like what you get out too. So it really does show, especially that they ended up being your senior year roommates. And I love that.
So you've mentioned, your struggles have taught you to have more grace for
Yeah.
yourself.
Hmm.
So realizing how much mental presence matters. Can you just explain what your journey was like, when you started to kind of have more grace for yourself and you helped you be more present?
Yeah, I think grace is something that I've learned a lot more after college than while I was in it. Even just like with the workouts, like, okay, like now my situation is different. I am not being held to a standard of a run test. So, like, my workout
Hmm.
can look different than it did when I was in
Right.
college. But also just like giving yourself grace for the life changes, right? Like, whether you're going into your freshman year of college or you're just going from freshman to sophomore year, it's hard. Like, it's all
It's
really
hard.
hard. And so I
Yeah.
think what's really helpful to be able to give yourself grace is to be vulnerable and lean into your friends, right? Like when you're able to connect with people, when my teammates and I, especially my freshman year, we were all competing for the same spots. We're on this, number 2 team in the country. At that time, I think we were ranked like number 7, but like we had just lost the national championship. This is a very competitive team.
Yeah.
And we could have just like shut our mouths and not talked about it and like just acted like we were all good and not calling our moms after practice every day. And like we did that sometimes for sure. Like you need your
Of
space.
course.
But I saw growth and I saw myself being able to have grace for myself and for other people when I could really say, hey, that was hard. Like that was a hard practice. And you felt that too.
Yeah.
I was confused on that drill. You were confused on that drill. Like whatever it was. How are you doing in class? Like just being open, I think is the best way to be able to give yourself grace because you realize, oh, I'm not alone in this.
And part of that is admitting your flaws and what you're not good at and
Yes.
making the people around you feel comfortable with admitting their flaws and not kind of holding yourself to the standard of like, I made this team, I'm perfect, I'm in a good space. And I
Because
think you
nobody is
do that
perfect.
incredibly because nobody is
Yes.
perfect, right, Ella?
Oh, yes. With a lot of the lows that you had, there seemed to be a lot of high highs as well, I will say. We kind of had to be talked about like the epic run you had in your lacrosse career. Okay, and you were in the final 4 for all 4 years of college, I believe.
Which is
And then
insane.
insane. And then you won 2 national championships as well. I'm just making sure that's correct. But
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know in your junior year, you did lose to Northwestern, but you came back and you beat them your senior year, which was amazing. And I just want to hear, like, can you talk about that redemption journey and what helped you and your teammates go through junior year that helped you, like, come back and win that next season?
Yeah. Well, very similarly to like when I came in freshman year, the storyline was you had lost. Like BC
Yeah.
can't get the job done. And so we
Mm.
had that same narrative. We lost by 1 my sophomore year, heartbreaking. We lost by 12
Heartbreaking.
my junior year, horrible. Like it's more than
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And so you come into the season with that weight, right? And what was so important for our team was to just let that go and like let that go, but also like use it to fuel us. So it was a really interesting balance of like, how do you not let something weigh you down, but like give you that aggressiveness to want to win? And what we
Yeah, the
had to do is just
motivation.
focus on like this year's team. Like, what's unique about this year's team? What's this year's team's edge? And I think that really helped us be able to be resilient and end up winning that game at the very, last couple minutes and coming back. I think we were down 6, which was crazy. But the resilience that I saw in my own teammates, like my girl Andrea Reynolds, she played at Holderness in high school. This girl is an absolute beast on the draw circle, everywhere on the field. She came off the field during that game and like had this look in her eyes that was like, we're not losing this game. She
You
might
just
have even
knew.
said that.
Yeah.
I like literally blacked out. I don't remember anything. But she
Yep.
literally was just like, we're not losing this game. And I think a huge part of that was just that resilience of like losing 2 national championships in a row and also being like, well, how much worse can it get? Right? Like
Yeah.
you got
Right.
nothing to lose. So there was a lot that went into that season, but we just had coaches who were bought in more than anything. We had from seniors to freshmen to managers to all of the staff at BC, from strength coaches to just in the athletic department. Like we had so much belief and buy-in that we really were able to have that can't lose attitude.
That support that you have, I mean, that means
You need
everything.
that
And
support
yeah,
system.
that support system, not just from your friends to your coaches to everything. And you also have a maturity about you, which I don't know if
Yes.
everyone your age has, but you have an incredible maturity about you.
Yeah.
Well,
Amazing.
thank you.
I have to ask, and I do need to know, what was the traveling like? Because I've heard like it involved like the private jets and the fancy hotels and fathead stickers on the buses and like a lot of crazy media coverage. Was that something that you were prepared for, and what was it like?
Yeah, well, I would say it was funny. Like we always joke about this. Like BC Lacrosse is so much. It is glam. Like it looks so glam, but we're also like
Yeah.
It
not that
does.
kind of program. Like we're not. Like
Yeah.
our coach. I remember one day our coach. We walked. I don't know when this came up, but Acacia brought us outside from where we were practicing, and she like brought us outside to a different area of campus and was just like, this is where we used to be. Like, remember your beginnings, just to like humble us in a way. And I wouldn't say any of us were like feeling too pompous or prideful, but it was just, and she didn't think that either. I think it was just more like, hey, don't forget, like, we might have all this attention and all the staff might care about us like more than anything right now, and all eyes will be on us. But like, remember where this program started. And that was something that I think is so important for our team because, you know, we definitely weren't private jetting charter. Like, we probably only chartered 2 flights, maybe the whole last season when we won, like maybe 2 flights. But like, we did get so much media attention. We did get sick buses, you know, going to the Final Four and all the things.
Oh,
and
you did. I saw.
yes, it was so cool. But I would just say that's what has allowed our program to be so successful, is that the like honor that we showed those girls that came before us who had gone to the Final Four all those years before and weren't able to get the win. Like, we didn't care. Like, we just were like in awe to be a part of the program. That's how we were able to really just stay grounded and be like, no, regardless, this is so cool to be a part of this.
I love that.
So,
It's a good
did you ever
mindset.
feel that you had so many eyes on you with the media and alumni and coaches that you didn't have the regular college experience, or no, you never felt that way?
I honestly never felt like it in a negative. It was more so just like, this is so cool. Like, are you
Right.
kidding me? I get to like wear a BC Lacrosse jersey. Like, I think that was what was really special about it. And two, like for me, I didn't watch a lot of college lacrosse like when I was really young. It once I got to high school, I was able to see it more. And so for me to be like scrolling on my Instagram and see recaps of our opponents and our own game and slow motion videos of us, like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this isn't every women's
so
sport.
lucky.
This isn't every women's league. And for us to be able to have that attention playing in the ACC with the media coverage in the video team that we just had at BC, it was so cool. So no, we definitely were like, it was not normal. Like, we all know, like, this is not normal. And we constantly say that to ourselves. Like, even now, like, after graduating in our Snapchat group chat, some people will be like, send a memory like 2 years ago and just be like, that was not normal. Like, that's not normal.
Like, this isn't real.
But incredible.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, and continuing with the not being real, like, to celebrate you winning the national championship last spring, you were invited to the White House, which is insane. So what was that experience like, and who did you meet?
Yeah, that was actually crazy because I had started my internship with the Seattle Seahawks. I was like 3 days in, and all
So
my
it was
team
over the summer.
yes, and my whole
Okay.
team
Oh, okay.
was leaving from like Boston or leaving from New York. So they had like 2 group meetups to go. So I had like just started my job, literally had like orientation. And then I was like, see ya. Like, I gotta go for like a day.
Bye.
So I flew in like less than 24 hours, was there. And that was just fun because I hadn't seen my teammates all summer. So it was a nice little reunion. But it was just cool to be honored with the other student athletes who had won championships. Like, you really realize, you're like, okay, this is cool, but like, look at how many other people also did this. Like,
Right. You're like, it's bigger than us.
yes, it was so cool. But the craziest part of that day, one of my awesome captains, Sydney Scales, texted me before. She's like, hey, we need a team rep. Like, would you mind going up and just being the team rep? And I didn't know if that was to speak. I didn't know what that was to do anything. And I had actually texted Sydney like, girl, like, you should be doing this. I am not the person. But she was really kind and just said, hey, I think you should do it. Had no clue what that entailed. Really, it was just to stand behind the vice president as she gave her speech. Well,
That's
this was
incredible.
this was literally the day following the announcement that Biden was stepping down as the candidate. So,
Oh
like,
my God, the
we should
timing of
not
that.
have been there.
That is insane.
We should not have been at the White House on that day at all.
Oh my
None of us,
God.
because of this, the historic significance. Well, I'm waiting inside the White House before they bring out the vice president and do all the speeches, and because a couple people were speaking. And I remember standing there, and in the rehearsal, I was in the last row, like in the back, probably wouldn't have been seen by any camera. And I had on a yellow dress, my mom's yellow dress. And I overheard someone start screaming, where's the girl in the yellow dress? Where's the girl in the yellow dress? We need a pop of color behind Kamala. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
Oh
I'm like,
my God.
oh my gosh, like, I'm like, first of all, why are they yelling at me like I did something wrong? Like, that was
Yeah.
my first
Oh
thought.
my God.
Like, I'm at the White House and they're yelling my name. Like, they're like, where's that Annabelle girl? Where? And they really just wanted, because everyone had their like college athletic gear on. So those are like, those gray dry fit shirts. Well, our
Right.
coaches
Mhm.
were like, we're going to the White House. Like, we're dressing up. So
Love it.
Absolutely.
obviously.
I would have
Awesome.
done the same thing.
Yes. And so you guys should have seen Acacia's outfit. It was awesome for that. Well, so they end up moving me like behind, like right where the speakers are going up, just because I had this yellow dress on. Well, the funniest part
Yep.
of that was before I left, my mom and I are talking. I'm like, I think I should wear red or blue or like something patriotic. She's like, no, wear the yellow dress. Like, trust me. And I
Moms
was like,
always know.
yes.
Always
Moms always
know.
know, Annabelle.
I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. She's like, trust me. So I did it. And I ended up being like right in the shot. And it was just cool because my grandfather, who lives in Connecticut, got to see it on his local news when he was watching her
I
speak.
love that.
So that was just a really cool moment to be able to be up there with my team. But then also just for my grandparents to see me represented in that historical moment was wild.
What
my
a
God.
moment. I
That
didn't
is
realize
insane.
that was after that day. I mean,
Oh,
that's
I
yeah.
didn't
truly
either.
incredible.
Yeah.
It was and everyone was
And they didn't
watching it.
cancel, right? They didn't change it. Like, that's so great.
Yes,
That
it
is
was wild.
amazing.
Okay, so transition a little bit backwards in a way. When you were at BC, you also hosted a show, which I've watched a ton of, and you're really
Mhm.
funny, actually.
Thank you.
Called "What's Up,
Actually,
BC?"
Mom.
No, I mean you're so great. It was
No,
called.
it's funny you say that because my dad has said that to me so many
Aren't you?
times.
You're funny. Do you
No,
watch
but
it back?
I don't wouldn't say I honestly I don't think I'm that funny, but I would say I got funnier. And my joke was like I went through like college was hard. Like it definitely was hard. I was like, once you hit the
Yeah.
ground, like all the funny things just surface. It's
Right.
just like
Yeah.
Totally.
it all comes up. So I think that was something I developed a little bit more, just like, now what kind of attitude.
Right. Well, it was called "What's Up, BC?" This is AB, which I love. I
Love
think that's so
it. So
cute.
creative.
And I've seen your interviews, and they're fabulous. But where did the idea come from, and how did you start doing this in college, in addition to your incredibly busy sports
Everything
schedule?
else.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Oh, and your academics.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
too.
oh yeah, that too.
School is important. No, this was something I had a summer internship going into senior year, and it wasn't in media. And I just thought to myself, I really want to explore this media opportunity. And if I'm going to do that, number one, I need to know if I like it, and I
Yeah.
need to
Absolutely.
practice. And number
You
two,
gotta
I
try
need to
it.
build a portfolio of content so that if I do
Yeah.
want to get a job after school in this, I need something to show. And I actually had just by random chance gotten asked to do a podcast for Boston College through the football team, really. And so that was like a huge, awesome opportunity to take. But I thought to myself, I need on camera practice. And
Yeah.
if I'm scrolling on my phone all day, like I'm probably going to watch clips more so than I am going to have time just in the thick of my season
Yep.
listening to like a longer podcast I did. So I need something that's the podcast, but shorter.
But
And
quick.
so I went to BC football and I was like, I would love to do these videos. And they're like, great, totally do them. We just like initially like we can't really help you. So I was like,
Right.
okay. So I actually called
Fine.
my friend who I went to high school with. He was in my grade at BC. Great videographer. I was like, can you please help me? So he was filming these for me. We were tag teaming it
That's
for a little
awesome.
bit. And it was just so cool for me because I got to really like act like I was a reporter. I got to really act like I was finding the right storyline. And this was also at a time when BC football did not have a very positive storyline, right? Like we were
Yeah.
coming off a tough season.
Yeah.
And selfishly, also why I wanted to do it was my senior year. I want to have
Yeah.
fun. It's more
Of
fun to go to
course.
school when your teams are winning. It's positive. So it was really just like, how can we make this season fun and people enjoy, and also see the athlete under the helmet? Like you're talking smack about that guy. Well, he's right next to you in class, right? Like
Right.
Yeah.
he's a student too. And so that was also my goal. Like, how can we shine a light on who the athlete is under the helmet? Like get to know you.
I love it.
So that was really what it was. It was super hard with lacrosse, I will say.
Can't imagine, because you had a ton of interviews.
You probably had no time.
I had no time
for
but
anything.
I do remember one time I was sweaty and gross from practice, and I was like, like if you're a girl, like you want to like look okay on camera.
Of course.
And I mean, like I had my makeup sweating off my face. I was curling my hair like it was sizzling from the sweat. Like my curling out, I was like sizzling. Like sometimes if you're in a rush, you gotta shower.
Oh yeah.
you curl it anyway. This was like just
Oh,
from
it's half
sweat.
wet still.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I would say it was really hard, but it was so fun at the same time. And I learned a lot through it. And what I realized, and this
Amazing.
would be like advice I'd give anyone trying to find, what career do you want to go into? I absolutely loved the hard work of it. I loved the process. I loved researching the athlete. I loved finding out the storyline. I loved talking to the coaches. I loved talking to the managers. I loved planning how are we going to do it. The hard part for me was like, what am I going to wear? Do I have time to curl my hair? And do I have
Yeah.
enough makeup? Right? Like
Right,
that
the
was like the
logistics of it,
stress.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? If I can get over the like little things that one day, like that won't be a stress. And I
Right.
Yeah.
love the hard work, which is what's important. That's the career I should be chasing.
It's amazing. So I feel like you kind of already said it, but did you know that's exactly what you wanted to do for a career? Or
No,
like,
so that
no?
was yeah, so
Mhm.
I was really taking
This was
senior
like the
fall to
start of
like
figuring it
figure
out.
it out.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
give myself
Okay.
till Thanksgiving. And at Thanksgiving,
Yep.
I'm gonna decide, am I gonna put together a portfolio, a highlight reel, and send it out and really go for a job in media. And I was able to do a job shadow, actually literally like the Thanksgiving Day game for Boston College, which is so crazy how it timed up. And I
That's
got to
crazy.
job shadow, which I highly recommend. Like job shadows are awesome. You should do as many of them as you can.
Ella
And
knows a bunch of people that do that. I think it's great
Yep.
because
I
you
think it's
really
so
learn if that's what
amazing.
mhm.
you're into and that's what you wanna do.
It's so
Yeah.
great. So I got to job shadow Harry Lyles. He was the sideline reporter for one of the BC football games. And literally, like, once I stepped on that field, alumni, and I had done my conditioning run at 8 a.m. That's, like the day
Yep.
before. So, like, nothing changed about Alumni Stadium. It was the same field that I had done all my runs, had tough practices, I've probably cried on to. And I got on that
Yep.
field and I was like, this is so cool. Like, this is what I want to do
Amazing.
is just be a part of game days. And I love game days. So that was definitely like where I realized, okay, I'm going to go for it. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
It has not been all uphill. It's still, like different. Leaving college is hard, but I would
Yeah.
say when you know what you want to do. And
Yep.
Yeah.
it's just been cool so far.
Well, that's
That's
what I was gonna say.
amazing.
Now that you've
Yes.
graduated, and you are graduated, which is good and bad, sad and great.
Yeah.
You have a great future ahead of you, and you're in your post-grad era now. That's what I like to say.
I know you always say that.
Ella's not too far behind you. You spent your first summer after graduation working for Seattle Seahawks. So you did
Doing digital content and interviews, right?
Yes, it
yeah.
was a
Okay. Yeah.
broadcast and PR internship.
Okay.
So how was it?
It was incredible. Like, I grew up in Seattle, so just number 1 to be there, like, back where I was home was so cool because when we left, like, it was a hard move. Like, that was my
Yeah.
childhood, and to be
Yeah.
just back there, like, I didn't have to use Waze, I didn't have to use maps, like, it was kind of
You
freeing,
really
honestly.
remembered all that?
Yeah, which is crazy. So that was just special, just to be back where I felt like I was home. And then to be
Yeah.
around an organization that I was such a fan of growing up. When we lived in Seattle, I was the biggest Seahawks fan. I mean, I was knitting scarves for the Seahawks. Like, I loved it. I did
That's
the
so
junior
funny.
cheerleaders every year. Like, I thought I was going to be a Sea Gal, all the things. So
Yeah.
it was just number 1 cool for me. And then also, like, I learned so much. Like, I learned from amazing professionals. I learned from the other interns that I was working with. So that was really
Yeah.
cool to learn from like all levels of people. And I would just say, like, it really opened my eyes. Like, did I immediately start working a full-time job after school? No. Did I have an internship? Yes. Was it the best decision
Yes.
I ever made? Yes. Like, you don't have to, jump right
Start
into
right away.
right. And if you do, awesome. And that's great. And it's probably going great for you. But also, don't like, there's no shame in doing an internship or taking time to figure out what you want to do. And just looking back, I could have rushed into something because I really wanted to learn because, right, all the things I did at BC were very
Yep.
DIY. There was no like
Yes.
professional
Yep.
person telling me what to do, which created a lot of problems for sure. So this was like, go learn from professionals, learn from the best, and really just get to be a part of that organization. So it was truly incredible.
And I
I
think what
love
you just
it.
said is important. So I'm going to repeat it for anyone listening, any of our listeners that are in college or that are even in high school, that you don't have to go the straight line path. You have to
Yes.
do what you love. I think that's really important, is to find something that you're really passionate and interested in and go for it. And if it's, not the typical path, then that's okay too.
I know from experience too, like podcasting and broadcasting are very different from the typical like 9 to 5 job path that a lot of people are taking, and probably that some of your friends are also doing. Has that been a little bit of an adjustment for you? Do we like it? Like, how does it
Yeah,
feel?
it's definitely been weird because you're right. Like most people are doing other like jobs that's not
Yes.
like when you say you're like, "Oh, I'm doing podcasts." You're like, "What?
They're
Like what are
like,
you talking about?"
"What?"
Like, what?
But
The job?
I think just like having some freedom in that and knowing, okay, putting yourself in that other person's situation. Would I want to
Yeah.
do that? Maybe you want to do it, but would I be good at it? Probably not. Like I am
Not.
so bad at math. Like I am so bad at math. So like even if
Me
I can't
too.
compare myself to someone whose job is doing a lot of math and doing
Yep.
maybe finances. Like that was
Right.
just not in the cards for me. That's not what I was gifted in. No one has really like spoken me or pushed me into that and said, "Hey, I believe this for you in that way." And more of the media side has been what I enjoy, what I feel like I can use my skills towards. And so I think the way to, handle that is like, okay, put yourself in that position that you think you're comparing yourself to and you think you should have and
Yeah.
really try to relate your situation to. And it's like, am I meant to do that? If you are, then
Yeah.
consider changing, consider holding yourself accountable to that other career. But if that's not who you are and that's not what you're good at, don't do it. Like,
Right.
Yep.
And I
I'm
will
not good at
say from
that.
watching you, you're incredibly talented at what you're doing. So
Oh,
Yes.
you
that
have a
means a lot. I
very bright
appreciate it. We're
future
learning. We're
ahead.
learning a lot. It's every day.
It's you learn as you
So
go,
is
but like
Ella,
it's
and we're both
amazing.
learning because this is a
Yeah. This
whole
is
different
still
ball
very
game
new
for
for
two of us.
us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know after your summer job, we know that you took a new job hosting your own show for Sports Spectrum, which is called What Up Sports Spectrum? What's Up Sports Spectrum?
Yes.
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 Where you interview sports figures about sports and faith. Congratulations. That is so amazing.
Huge.
Can you just talk why it's so important to you?
Yeah. Thank you. It's been awesome. Number one, just to be able to use that like "What's Up" from BC. So
I
that was
love
cool that
it.
the Sports Spectrum team allowed me to keep that and thought that was fun because
I
really
love
that was
that.
just something that came up. I did not plan it. So crazy how that happened. But no, this has been so cool for me because Sports Spectrum was already a podcast that I listened to growing up, driving to AAU basketball games, even in
Yep.
college, sitting on my floor, folding my laundry or just on a walk on a Sunday. Like I would listen to that to fill me up and to just be
Mm-hmm.
encouraged by other athletes around the world, really, who were also pursuing their sport and their faith at the same time. And so for me to be able to be on the other side of the microphone now is like so surreal, so cool. And it's funny. I bet you guys feel this way sometimes when you talk and interview people who you really like. I finished some of my interviews and they don't come out the next day. Like there's
No.
some
Yeah.
time that goes between. So
Right.
I'll feel like I'm like holding on to all this awesome information or like,
Yep.
oh, I got to talk to this person, but nobody knows.
Oh my God, we talk about that every week. We're
All
kind
the
of
time.
like,
Even for this, I'm like, I want it to come out today, right after
no,
this.
but it is. It's so exciting because you get so much insight and information from everyone you interview. And I think that's important too. So, as someone on the verge of a lot of change, what are you hoping for yourself in the next year?
That's a
Do you have
loaded.
like,
That's a loaded
That is,
question.
I know,
I
that's a crazy
know.
question,
You don't have to,
Mom.
you don't
No,
have
that's
to
good.
answer.
I think like something that I saw in my time at BC and my time in college was like I was able to feel like I was thriving or feel like I was putting my best foot forward when I plugged into the things around me. Like not when I closed myself off, but when I plugged in to my lacrosse team, to clubs, to other social things, to my family. And so that would be my hope for me is like, okay, now that I have a job and I'm in my post
Yep.
grad era,
Yeah.
like that doesn't mean that I'm only plugged into my job and feeling like
Yes.
my identity is, oh, I'm not in college anymore. Like my identity is not, I'm not in college anymore. My identity is like, now I have the rest of my life to
Life.
figure it out. Right. And so I think that would be my goal is I hope that I plug in ways that I was plugging in college to
Yep.
clubs, into athletic, things. My sister's like, you should join a run club. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not living in the city right
Not a
now,
bad
so I don't know
idea.
how that's
I know
going to
you
work.
got to go to
Yeah.
Boston. I've been looking because we have to go on TikTok all the time. And there are some really fun young run
Run
clubs.
clubs.
I
of
know I
people
got to
in
join one.
Boston.
Let me get in shape. Let me get in like mile shape before I do
And
that.
do you
But
bike?
I do bike a little bit.
Okay, because Ella goes to Rev'd. Is that
Rev.
Studio? And
Okay.
it's
Yep,
a
it's the best.
unbelievable biking studio.
Okay, I'm gonna
And they
check
have
it
a
out.
few locations around in Massachusetts, so it's awesome.
Okay, good. I'm gonna check it out. So
Yeah.
everybody, watch out
Yes.
for me in these new social
There's one at Legacy
fitness clubs.
Place.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Oh, yes, there is. Then you can get Sweetgreen after.
Good. I love it. So that'll be my new thing. Is just plug me
Ella
in.
exercises for the food.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'm a foodie, so it's good. Okay. I mean, we could continue. I could talk to you for another like 5 hours. But before we wrap up, we love doing this with our guests. We like to end with some tangible advice for our listeners. So we do like really rapid fire questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do them quick. All right. So, what advice do you have for high school students or anybody who is looking or hoping to play a D1, D2, or D3 sport in college?
This is so simple, but like work hard. Like it's not cool to be lazy. It's not cool to not practice. It's not cool to like skip, club practice because
Yep.
you're not too cool for like taking your foot off the gas. And so I would just say like work really hard because even if you're committed anyway, like you can still be practicing to be amazing for your team and like be
Yeah.
the best player for your team and be ready to handle hard coaching, right? And so
Yep.
I would just say like work hard because it doesn't like you don't just work to a certain point and then you're good, you're on the team. Like it's till you're a 5th year senior, whatever it is, you're still getting better.
And you can compare that to relationships, right? You don't stop working once you get married. You work in
Nope.
your relationship to stay married, right?
Yep.
Everyone has to put in the effort no matter where they are in it. I love that.
I love that. That's good.
Okay. So, what has sports taught you about life?
Ooh, that's good. I think this is something that my coach, Acacia, said a lot last year was like, you can handle hard things, you can do hard things. And it's really simple, but it just gives you a little confidence. Like, I can do hard things. So I would say sports has taught me, like, when you go through hard things in sports, it translates immediately to life. Like,
Yep.
physically doing hard work immediately translates to mental toughness. It does.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, like, take heart in that hard things on the field you will see the results out in your life.
Okay. If you could go back and tell your freshman year self one thing, what would it be?
Ooh.
This is awesome. Okay. I really wish that I could tell my freshman year self this.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, like, go for it. Like, my mom had actually given me the advice to do interviews with athletes freshman year, and I was too timid. I was like, like,
Wow.
let me kind of get my bearings. I
Get
don't know if I
in.
want to do journalism anyway. I don't know if I want to do
Yep.
media. I'm camera shy, like all the things, and I didn't do it. And so I would just say, like, go for it. Like, there's no time to waste. College goes by like that. School goes by
Yep.
like years go by like that. And so I would just say, like, if you have something on your heart or you feel like you want to try something, just go for it.
And if your mom tells
Like,
you
what's
to do
the worst
something,
that could
Yes.
happen? You know.
And if your mom tells you to do
and
something,
if your mom
do it.
tells you to do something, Ella,
yes,
you do it.
Wear the yellow dress.
Yes, wear the yellow dress.
That's gonna be. I'm gonna literally. I think that's gonna be my new saying with Ella when something comes up. I'm gonna be like, wear the yellow dress.
Yeah, that's good.
I
That's
love it.
hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Love that. Okay, so what's the most valuable lesson you learned from someone in your family?
Ooh.
There's
Wow.
probably so many.
I mean, you
There's
have
so
a
many.
couple mom
I
things you've
can- yeah.
mentioned, but
Couple mom things I mentioned. There's a lot I could say. I think my dad gave me this advice, and I would say this is advice that you have to use in certain circumstances. But he was like,
Mhm.
don't take criticism from someone. Don't take criticism like to heart about like who you are as a person if you wouldn't ask that same person for advice, right? Like, and just to kind of have that perspective, now you need to use that with a grain of salt in some circumstances because you have to
I
be
love
coachable. You
that.
have to be able to handle criticism in whatever, environment you're in. But like even in high school, in middle school, if you're getting, bullied or teased or whatever, like, well, would you ask that person for advice? Like, probably not.
great advice
If you're
from your
scrolling
dad.
on TikTok and somebody
need to use
speaks
this
something over me,
advice.
like,
You
would
do.
I ask that person for advice? Probably not. Right. So
Yeah.
I think that's like a small funny one, but then also like something that I think my parents really engraved in us that helped me in throughout all of BC and like being a part of such an awesome team was like you represent that team. So like it was for us, it was like you represent the Hasselbeck family. So how are you going to go and represent your lacrosse team or just BC in general? And I think everyone can take that. You see how like nowadays we just group people so easily. It's like, oh, you're
Yes.
part of this, then all those people must be
Oh.
like that.
Yep.
And so I think that's
not
why,
like
like,
that.
yes, that's not true. Like, not every, but it's it's what we do as humans. So just being able to like truly represent and honor what you're a part of. That was something that my coaches constantly said, like, you leave this locker room, you are representing the team. And I think that's something that I really took to heart and cared a lot about because it was so cool for me to be on Boston College Lacrosse.
I think you need to do a video
I'm learning so
of
many
your
lessons
coaches
right now.
and all this advice. And this is a totally separate thing from what you're doing. We can talk about this offline. But I think you have something here that you can take a lot of what you've learned and literally it should be a
Help other
video
people.
for high
Well,
school.
they talk. They're constantly teaching things. So
It's incredible.
Join the team. Join the fan club.
I love
I'm
it.
a fan of the BC lacrosse team.
Yes. Okay. Let's get real for a minute. What is like a deal breaker or a red flag for you in somebody else? And on the flip side, what would you say is like your own red flag?
That's good. Okay, like deal breaker, I like really appreciate, and I would start it on like I would like flip it a little bit. Like I really appreciate when people are just like no filter, like just not fake, raw. Like they could even be like, "Oh my gosh, like I look so good today," and I'd be like, instead of feeling like, why did you say that? I'd be like, yeah, you did look really good. Like I love that. So I would say my red flag in people is when you can tell someone's not being genuine. Like that makes me kind of freaks me out a little bit, honestly.
No, that turns me off too.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then what was the other question? It was a red flag for me.
Yeah, what do you see?
What's like your own red flag? Like I'm a people pleaser, so that's all I do.
This one's not as deep, but like I thought of it today when I was getting ready for this podcast. I take so long to get ready. Like it's not good. Like
that is a red flag though. It should
not take me this long to like dry my hair, do my makeup. Like it shouldn't take me that long. So that's something I need to work on as a person. Like, and I wouldn't say that I'm late all the time, but like I carve out too much time of my day to work
to get ready.
Get ready and get out of the house. Like, you know what? If my hair is not fully dry, it's fine. Like I need to take a little bit of that with me.
Well, you're beautiful inside and out, so you don't need hours and hours to get ready.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. This was so honestly like
I have learned so much today. I'm taking all of this advice with me.
This is incredible.
So good.
Yeah, and I know you have a crazy schedule and you have your own podcast going on, so we appreciate this. Don't miss Annabelle hosting her podcast, What's Up Sports Spectrum, and co-hosting the NESN podcast, Respect Her Game.
Yes. Well, thank you guys for having me. Everything you do is incredible, and it's really important because kind of what I'm trying to do with Sports Spectrum too is like you're scrolling all day and what you're watching is filling you up, and you guys are putting out content that is really just relatable to people, and it's fun, and I smile when I see it. So thank you guys for inviting me. This has been an honor and cheering you on.
Thank you so much. And your hoodie is on its way.
Thank you. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yay.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. So we hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did and found a few things to take away with you, because I certainly did. So we'll be back next time with more. And in the meantime, keep being real, keep being you, and know that we've got your back. If you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to say hi, we would love to hear from you. Your support means everything to us. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Chasing Red Flags Official, and on Facebook and YouTube at Chasing Red Flags. And if you want to share your story, ask a question, or pick up some Chasing Red Flags merch, go to chasingredflags.com. The Chasing Red Flags podcast is produced by Jay Del Turco. We are new in this space, so if you enjoyed what you're hearing, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or add a comment and like on our YouTube channel.